On this week's episode of the Jesse T Show, the amazing and powerful Jeremy Wells, PhD and CFO of JWellsCFO Service Firm. Jeremy, great to have you on the show.
Great to be here, man. Thank you very much for the invitation. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man, it's my pleasure. I know you're kicking ass in all sorts of ways in life, and I wanted to share you with the world and see what we can do to kind of get your platform out there, and we can collaborate and also talk about a few different things. So tell the world a little bit about Jeremy Wells.
So, I'm trying to kick ass my own way, but really my main focus is to help others kick ass, especially those entrepreneurs, those small business people, those people that even wage earners. Anybody and everybody that is trying to have a better life from a financial perspective, from all a tax perspective, all those kinds of things. I'm trying to help them. So I run a full service accounting firm called JWellsCFO. And CFO means Chief Financial Officer, and it's usually a title that gets reserved for people who work for big Fortune 500 companies. But my business model is to bring that down and scale that down for anybody and everybody who needs that. So everything from personal tax filing, business tax filing, helping you deal with IRS and tax agencies. And then if you have a small business and you're starting to grow that, the bookkeeping, the payroll, the business consulting and advising, all those kinds of things. So whatever from a financial perspective you need help with in your life, then I provide that chief financial officer role, that outsourced role for you.
That's an imperative role for a lot of businesses. And so there's a lot of people out there at different seasons of business. You have startups, you have growth mode, you have, seasoned type businesses that may be looking at building succession planning or exit strategies or selling their business, or even maybe just riding their bit. Like for my industry, I could ride my business out until I die if I wanted to, and just kind of, let my book of business kind of become self-sustaining, so to speak. So what is it that you're finding in your businesses that you're working with, some of the problems that you're solving for them, things that you're working on to help them level up in their business?
Yeah, so definitely the main one is, and this is a problem that we see with the way individual, especially small business owners, and primarily small businesses. I have lots of personal clients, meaning that they're just they are wage earners, they are employees, and I help them as much as I can. But they have some constraints just because their income is their income, and so their tax return is usually their tax return. But there are some financial advising things that we can go over throughout the year, in terms of retirement planning, in terms of college savings, and just kind of going over those things, but from a tax perspective, whereas, you need to talk to your financial advisor as to where to actually put that money. But then I can help talk to you as far as, what the tax advantages of those kinds of moves are going to be. And really, I see that as a collaboration with you and your financial advisor. But when we start getting into small business owners, there's still those kinds of issues on the personal side, but on the business side, there are a few things. So one is there's just a ton of misconception about the difference between a legal entity and a tax structure. I see a lot of people say, well, I've got an LLC, so I'm okay, right? Well, no, you've taken a big step, but it's just the first step. And where we go from here in terms of actually getting you the tax structure that you need, the tax savings you need, and then how that tax structure affects the way you run your business day to day. If you're an S Corp, do you need to run payroll to yourself? Yes, you do. If you're a partnership, no, you can't. And in fact, you'll get into trouble if you try to run payroll to yourself as a partnership. And these are just some big misconceptions. And I see people that have, done this and had this kind of stuff going on for a year or two before they finally wise up and say, I need to hire a professional to help me with this. So the first one is just making sure that you've got the right legal entity and tax structure in place for your business. The second one is, and this is one of the biggest red flags if you get involved in an audit or an examination with a tax agency, especially the IRS, is commingling of personal and business funds. Yeah. So you have to create a separation, even if you don't have a registered legal entity or some formal tax structure, something like that. Even if you haven't gone that far, you have to keep that separate. If you want to start a business, and I don't care if you're selling little knickknacks on Etsy. If you want to do something that is you starting a business on your own, the very first thing you need to do is go to the bank. And it doesn't have to necessarily be a business checking account, but open a second checking account and run that business through that checking account and separate those two things. Because the first thing the IRS is going to look at is, where's the money? Where's the money coming from? Where is it going? And if they can't tell the difference between you taking your family out to eat and you having legitimate business deductions, they're just going to say, I'm not buying it, and they'll cancel all of it out. And IRS can do that. They can do that very easily.
Yep. That's incredible knowledge, man. You're dropping the bombs right now for the knowledge bombs. But for people that are business owners and entrepreneurs, there's a lot of those folks that listen to the podcast and watch the show on YouTube. There's something called, and you know this very well, but something called piercing the corporate veil. Yeah. And so if you're commingling funds, like you said, and you're spending personal on business, business on personal, a lot of business owners start that way, because they're starting from personal. Yep. They're going from being a W-2 employee or a wage earner, and they're trying to step out into this new venture. And so they aren't commingling, and that's just kind of a lot of the natural progression. But to get out of that as soon as possible and clean it up, I think is huge. And something I learned recently too, I've been in business for years and years and years. And I was an entrepreneur when I was a kid, buying, selling, trading comic books, baseball cards, all that fun stuff. And it led into what I do today. But I've had to learn through the years on how to do these things properly. And so you mentioned it, hit the nail right on the head. Like, I've been an S Corp before. I'm an LLC now a couple times over, different business iterations. And even when I had that LLC structure set up, like you said, you're not fully done. And there's a couple things. You mentioned the taxation strategy side. There's another piece where something as simple as an operating agreement. If you don't have an operating agreement in place, that's another layer that people don't even know exists. And if you don't have that in place, showing funds and showing, directions of the company and who's managers, who's owners, like, those things can get you into trouble. So talk to me a little bit about some of the little things, the value nuggets that you see that you can add immediate value to a client right away by pointing things out in their business that they may not be privy to when they set it up.
Well, you said it right there. There's this laundry list of things that you have to go through, and you can spend a few hours one afternoon on Google trying to figure out all of these different things. And of course, depending on whichever search hit you however you phrased that search, and then whichever site you stumble upon doing that list might not be complete. That list might leave a few things out, or that list might have been specific to the state that the author of that blog post was thinking about and not specific to your state. Because when you're talking about setting up that legal entity, that's state specific. All 50 states have their own rules and their own terminology of how, and their own processes, their own fees of how all these things work. And so you've got to know that state. When you start talking about tax structure, whether it's an S Corp or C Corp, these kinds of things, now you're talking about the federal level. And so, you can just look at the IRS for some of those things, but to actually get this thing up and running before you can do any of that stuff, you have to know what's going on in your state. And so that laundry list of things you've got to go through, you might get lucky and you might actually figure that out. Okay, now are you actually doing these things in the right order? Are you going to the Secretary of State and registering it? And then are you going to your Department of Labor to register the payroll? And are you doing, are you getting your business liability insurance set up? Did you get a good deal through your vendor on that? All these different things that you've got to start checking off all these boxes. And now saying, well, I'm just going to sit down and do a quick Google search has turned into a week-long project, right? That you weren't planning on. And in the meantime, you might have had this business already up and running, even though you haven't formalized it yet, and you've still got orders coming in, you've still got all this going on, and you're getting stuck in the weeds trying to figure all this out. Why don't you just go ahead and let a professional handle all of this for you behind the scenes, right? And you can trust that this is not only being done correctly, but it's also being done so that you can still be doing your business. This is my focus with my clients, is I want you from that E-Myth perspective. There's that great book, the E-Myth. And the whole, to boil it down to one sentence, is you as a business owner should be spending less time working in your business and more time working on your business. And as your chief financial officer, that's really what I'm trying to get you to, a position where you can be running the business and not letting the business run you.
Yeah, that's imperative, man. There's so much to be done in the course of building a business, and there's working smarter versus harder. Sometimes it's working harder just to get stuff done. And if you have a team of people around you, consultants around you, wise counsel, it goes back to many, many moons ago of people that just wanted to level up in life. And so if you have people around you like a CFO, a wealth manager, a lawyer, you have like a health coach, you have a faith-based coach, if that's what you're into. You have to have people around you that are experts in their field so you can do what you do well. And so a lot of these businesses that are out there, service-based businesses, they're creating things, they're selling things, they're managing relationships. And if they can, like you said, E-Myth is an incredible book. For those who haven't listened to E-Myth, So if people haven't heard of E-Myth, it talks about being three different things in your business, from being the owner, which is what you're talking about, to being the technician, which is what you're great at in the business, to being the manager of the operations, like kind of day to day, and not getting stuck in those ways where you can hire somebody that comes in and is a professional, knows what they're doing, and they can do it at a higher level. So they either save you or make you more money faster without a lot of the headaches and a lot of the risk. And so I want to talk a little bit about your background, kind of tying into what you're doing now. You know, you do have those a few letters at the end of your name with PhD and EA. And if you want to tell the world a little bit about what those things, you know, what you did before and how that leads into now, I think that's really imperative to see the value that you bring to the table.
Yeah, I'll try to do this quickly. Don't want to give you my whole biography here and bore everybody. But so I knew high school and going into undergrad that I was dead set on law school. You know, I was for sure going to do that. And so the college I was at didn't have a bespoke, you know, pre-law program. So I majored in the closest thing that I thought would make sense, which was political science. But I added on a business minor. And so the first semester I was taking business classes. I took accounting one and I took a business law class. I hated the instructor for the business law class. I actually didn't mind the accounting class, but I said, you know, that was the plan. So I just ended up dropping the whole thing, sticking with political science, ended up going to grad school instead. Spent 6 years at Louisiana State University, got my PhD there in political science, focusing on international politics. So I was studying why big countries get involved in the politics of smaller countries, especially in terms of civil wars and this kind of stuff, right? Yeah. And so, you know, I was doing that for a while. I got my first job out of LSU at a university in Central Texas, Texas State University, huge school right in the middle in a little town called San Marcos, Texas, right between Austin and San Antonio. So nice. So not a bad place to be. It was just really far. My family's all in Kentucky. My wife's family is all in Florida. And so we were way out in the middle of nowhere. So after the first few years of that, I was enjoying, you know, the job, the teaching and research side, but it was really the one-on-one conversations that I was having with students during office hours that I was getting more fulfilled by. And that was when I got to sit down with students one-on-one and get into more of a planning perspective and trying to connect dots, seeing why, you know, figuring out why they registered for my class. And they registered for my class because they picked this major. Well, why did you pick this major? Because I want to do this job. Well, why do you want to do this job, right? And asking these questions that would build up to getting to know what this person was, and in a way where we could then, you know, get to the top of that mountain, but then start deconstructing it and figure out, okay, what's actually happening here? What are your goals? What are you planning to achieve? And how can we figure out a way to make this class, not just where you pass this class, but where you take this class and you turn it into something bigger, right? And all your other classes. And I was getting a lot of enjoyment out of those classes. And I started thinking back, you know, if I was going to do anything but teaching, you know, international politics, then how else could I do that? And, you know, I started looking back as I'd taken an undergrad, and that accounting course came up. You know, I was talking to my wife who has an MBA. And so, you know, she had been through a lot of business courses and that kind of stuff. And so, you know, we sat on that accounting course and thought about that for a while. That next week, I went to the accounting department at the university I was teaching at, and they were perfectly fine with me coming over and taking classes. So I was squeezing every accounting class into my teaching schedule that I could find room for. So I would go teach a class, and then I'd run over to the business school and take an accounting class, and then I'd run back. So as a faculty member of this university, they were cool with me taking classes. You know, I got a good deal on it, got a discount on it. And so I was running back and forth between teaching classes and taking classes. And the more I was doing this, the more I realized, you know what, sitting down and talking with adults and helping them plan out their lives, figure out what the bigger picture was, and then also enjoying the logic and the structure of accounting, I started up my own business. So January 1, 2018, I opened up JWellsCFO. My mentor, who I'd been talking with for about 6 months at that point, he was the one who had recommended becoming an EA, right? And so an EA is an enrolled agent. It's actually a credential that you get directly from the IRS after passing 3 exams that, you know, and it's similar in structure to you know, the way the CPA exams work, where you have to go to a professional testing facility, you sit down, everything's monitored. So it's a very high stakes, rigorous exam. You go through 3 different parts of this, individual, business, and then working with the IRS, because the thing that sets EAs along with CPAs, but EAs and CPAs apart from just your normal tax professional, your tax preparer, is that we can actually represent you in front of the IRS. So if we get you to sign what's called a power of attorney, and it really doesn't give us any strong rights. It doesn't let us sign things for you, whatever. But basically what it does is you sign this form basically saying that we can represent you in front of the IRS. So if the IRS doesn't like the math on your tax return, or if they don't understand why we made a certain decision when it came to preparing your tax return that we did, and they send you this scary notice saying, the IRS doesn't just send you a letter saying, hey, explain this to us. They send you a letter saying you owe us all these taxes because we recalculated everything for you. And it's intimidating and it's scary. But you know what you do? If you're one of my clients, all you have to do is scan that letter, send it to me, and let me take care of it for you. I respond to the IRS on your behalf. If I need to call the IRS, I get you to sign that power of attorney. I call the IRS. I sit on hold with the IRS for 30, 45 minutes, sometimes a couple hours. So you don't have to, right? Yeah, exactly. So all those kinds of things I take care of for you as an EA, same thing that a CPA can do.
Incredible, man. And the value there is immeasurable. I mean, it's someone who knows how to work the system, knows what to look for, knows what to be prepared for, versus going in blindly, going in afraid because you don't know the information. I mean, just in itself, that's a huge value add there. But there's a couple things I wanted to talk about that you mentioned that caught my ear. So starting businesses, I've been around that myself personally. I know people that do it, and I help clients get into the wealth planning side of those things and helping them build out plans for this thing. And so also, talking about a mentor. And so I've had a mentor for many years, and I want to talk about that as well. But in terms of starting your business, January 2018, congratulations, going on 2 years, you're doing it. And any kind of upstart business is always a daunting task. It's thrilling. It can be scary. It's like a roller coaster ride. And eventually you kind of learn to smooth out those ups and downs. And so talk a little bit about your experience in starting this new venture and maybe what you were doing just before this and the transition, and then kind of the building blocks and maybe even some of the pain points that you had to grow through.
So I had this full-time teaching job at this university I was at. I started taking classes myself. By the way, right before I started taking classes I started taking classes in the fall of 2017. In the summer of 2017, my wife and I had our daughter. So and then I started the business in January of 18. That 17-18 academic year was interesting. And then, I started working that tax season too, which, is the spring of 18. So that was a fun, academic, not calendar, but academic year there. And, I cannot underestimate, I cannot overestimate, and I cannot oversell the importance of having a mentor. That makes all the difference in the world. And when I say a mentor, I don't mean a boss, right? A lot of people might confuse boss for that. This is not somebody that you have any sort of, real dependence on, because if there's a dependence in that relationship, it doesn't work. But this is somebody who is willing to stick their neck out for you, to take you under their wing, to show you the ropes in a way that is going to build you up, right? And yes, there might be a way that you work this out to where there's some compensation for the time and those kinds of things. But this is somebody who has a, what we in the financial services would call a fiduciary interest, right?
Absolutely.
Somebody that is doing it. Yeah. Somebody that's doing it just for the sake of seeing you succeed, right? Yep. That's what they get back out of that.
I love it.
And so, I just happened to be listening to a podcast this guy hosts. He'd been a CPA for 12, 13 years at that point. And I reached out to him on Twitter, through a direct message, and just said, introduced myself, said, hey, here's what, exactly. Here's what I'm thinking. If this doesn't sound completely ridiculous to you, then I'd appreciate, any thoughts. And that turned into a 90-minute phone call, which has turned into a relationship that I've had for more than 2 years now with this person that has really huge. Paid off. So, he showed me the ropes. He helped me set up the structure. And when I told him that I had passed that third enrollment exam to become an enrolled agent, the third and final exam, he said, great. And that day he started sending me his clients' tax returns to prepare for him. And he started sending me referrals. So I was starting to build up my own book of business when I had just come into this. And for a lot of accountants who go the more traditional route of, as part of the education process, when they're working on that undergraduate degree, they're fighting to get internships so that then they can go get the partner's coffee for, a semester.
Yeah.
And then, coming out of that, they're trying to compete for an entry-level job at a Big Four. And it might be 4 or 5 years before anybody ever trusts them to shake a client's hand, much less actually manage that client's, portfolio. And here I am, and I haven't been doing this 5 minutes, and I'm setting up my own clients. I'm doing business tax returns for the CPA. So, he kind of threw me into the deep end, but, in a way that I knew I wasn't going to drown. Right.
That's incredible.
And that made all the difference. Yeah, absolutely.
There's so much value in having a mentor, and it's, there's they're kind of becoming cliche, but they're real. There's a couple thoughts out there from different thought leaders of you're the average of the 5 people that are closest to you. So you want to surround yourself with amazing people. And then the rule of thirds, which is a third of your contacts or people that you're in relationships with should be ahead of where you are in life, and they can help groom you and guide you. And you can help them too, but the next set of thirds should be kind of in the middle to walk through life and the season that you're going through. Like you just had a child not too long ago, just started a business. So finding people in that walk, and then also people that the last third is the bottom. I wouldn't say the bottom, but people that are kind of just below you. So people that you can kind of pass on that information, that knowledge, and help raise them up. And it's just like this complete cycle. So I think it's amazing to have a mentor. You mentor others, and you probably mentor him or her in a way, this person that you work with. And so real quick, the podcast, if you don't mind dropping that, and we'll talk about yours too, the podcast name for your CPA friend and their name, and just kind of, if you want to talk about them a little bit, or are they kind of,
Yeah, absolutely. No. Andrew Carroll, he's like I say, he's been a CPA for around about 15 years now. He was actually an EA for the first couple of years before that. And so that's why, he was a fan of the enrolled agents. Among the CPA community, there's a debate over the quality and of the EA credential, and there are bad EAs, but there are bad CPAs out there,
like
and so
else.
Exactly. So it's not the credential itself, it's how you use it. Right. Yep. And that's what matters. But the podcast that he was hosting with a buddy of his is called Orthogonal. It's this fancy term meaning independent, basically. And so they talk about the issues of being an independent business person, a freelancer. And this is really his niche that he developed when he left, I think about 4 or 5 years ago now, he left the accounting firm that he had been with, and he knew he didn't want to build just another CPA firm. And so he built a model that's based on flat monthly billing, that's based on bringing this CFO model down to individuals that need it. So he works with a lot of independent freelancers, this kind of thing. And so this is kind of the model that he helped me build up. And this is why I say, I believe in the CFO model, bringing that CFO position down to, people who need it, but can't afford to bring in their own in-house accounting firm. And so we just do that outsourced, and we tailor that package to whatever it is you need. If you just need somebody to do your taxes and answer the occasional question, we've got a plan for that. But if you need somebody that's running your books, that's running your payroll, that's doing all this, we can scale that up too. And so, anything and everything in between in terms of the accounting, the tax, the bookkeeping, the payroll, all those kinds of things. One-stop shop in the advice-based business
you're getting me excited, because this is where I live. So you mentioned the term fiduciary. And for those that don't know, fiduciary is someone who has your best interest at heart, especially when it comes to finances. And so for me, I am a fiduciary, and I took it the extreme level. And as we grow our relationship, you'll learn this about me, but I'm a rebel at heart. And in the industry that I'm in as a financial planner, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of misunderstandings. But what it comes down to is there's 3 different types of people. There's people that work on commission. There's people that work on commission and charging fee. And then there's people that are fee only. Being fee only makes you a fiduciary, and it aligns you with your client because you have their best interest at heart. You're not selling a product. You're not selling a service. You're not receiving a commission, which there's an inherent discourse there. You're doing everything in the best interest of your client. So when you talk fiduciary, which I always make a joke, it sounds like a funny word because it sounds like douche, right? Fiduciary. Yeah. But when I use that word with people, it resonates with them because they understand it. I'm on their side. It's a beautiful handshake. And so I am a fiduciary. I am a fee-only financial planner, wealth manager. And there's only about 5% of the market that actually is fee-only in my world. And so I love what you're talking about. I love how you handle your clients, because that's how I handle my clients too. It's all transparency. So in terms of going through these 2 years, you're coming at the end of the second year, going into 2020, which is crazy to say, right? But going into 2020, hindsight's in front of us. So for 2020 and everything you've built up to this point, how has your business changed in the last almost 2 years from getting thrown into the deep end, which I think is great in a way because sink or swim, right? And you swim, and now you're an Olympic swimmer probably, right? So how did you go through that transition, and like what does the business look like today?
Yeah. So I think like any business that's on the more, service oriented side, and really this applies to creatives as well, and I think this is a big part of what separates most employees from most small business owners is at first it's just purely getting over those internal barriers, right? The only barriers you have to success are internal, that imposter syndrome, right? Am I going to be good enough at this? Do I even know what I'm talking about? To the point, would I even help a friend out with this problem, much less charge you money to tell you what I would do in this situation, right? That right there is a huge barrier, especially, not coming from a background in this field, and these kinds of things. So really getting over those.
Barrier? It's important because I had to break it too. Yeah.
Part of that comes back to having that mentor, because there have been lots of times where, I would come up with this paragraph long explanation of why, because of this client's particular problem, I just didn't know if I was right for this. I didn't know if this was going to work. And he would just write back a very simple response, usually, something along the lines of, everybody has imposter syndrome, get over it and do the job. That's all, answer the client's question. That the client hired you because you know better than they do, right? Yeah. Like that's that. And they're asking you the question because they want you to answer it for them, right? That's what matters in that relationship. Put all the rest of that aside, put the pride aside, put the fear aside, and just do the job. And I still struggle with that. Somebody that's been doing this for 20 years will still have moments of struggling with it, but you just get better with more practice, right? Of getting over that. And so I think that's part of it. I think another part of it is getting better at, and this is one of the hardest parts of being in one of these client focused industries is, when you first start off, you think you need every single client to come in, you need to close every single client. And, you get nervous when clients, don't take your offer. And then you get to a point to where you realize, okay, but some of these clients I was so desperate to take that I ignored the red flags that came along with them. And so you start to be, and you realize that, it was nice getting the payment from that client, but it's been terrible trying to work with that client. They don't listen to me. They have more problems than I thought they did, than they disclosed to me early on. And now I'm just realizing it. And now they're blaming me for all these problems that they created because they weren't listening, and the dominoes just start falling. And you realize those red flags were there all along, and you knew those red flags were there. You just chose to ignore them. And so learning not to ignore the red flags and really honing in on what that ideal client is. And no client individually is going to be ideal, but you work with the clients that are close to that ideal. And, you set yourself up to serve those good clients better in the long run, because you're not spending so much time and energy trying to deal with these clients that came in with all this baggage, with all these red flags.
It's incredible, man. There's so many parallels between the things that we've done and we're doing, and the things that we have mentors and being fiduciaries and working with clients on a fee kind of deal. And so one of the things that I was really built into my mind, because I did come from the brokerage side of investment planning, where it was always sales and throwing spaghetti against the wall, so to speak, which I hated, which is why I got out of it, but try to find as many clients as possible and churn and burn and wake up January 1st broke, in a sense, not broke, but like having to find new money. And like, it just wasn't a sustainable business model. You can only run so fast for so long before you should put things in place to build the business, right? Work on the business, not in the business. And so the biggest thing I learned from my mentor, his name is Patrick Tucker. He's an investment advisor, entrepreneur up in Omaha, Nebraska. He talks about, and it's a military term. I was in the military as well, but it's called PETA, pain in the ass. You don't want to bring in PETAs to your business. Nope. And it's three things you look for. And so it's funny, before I go into those three things, and I'm sure you look at these things too, but I look at this almost like dating. Like, instead of bringing everybody into my business, do I want to run with this person in life? Are they going to be interesting to be around? Are they going to be a pain in my ass? Like, are they going to be someone that's going to go along with the process and understand that, I have everything in terms of the best interest for them at heart? And so the three things I look for, the first one is likability. One of the first biggest cognitive biases that someone can have is, do you like somebody, right? And so if this person doesn't like me because of my hairstyle or because I'm from Boston or whatever, and it's going to piss them off, well, then maybe they shouldn't be a client. And then the second thing is participation. So dealing in the world of financial planning, and you're in financial services as well, and you do a lot of different things in this space, participation's huge. If they don't want to bring you the information you need to do your job, or if they can't show up to an appointment on time, or if things happen and that's fine. But if they're just not participating in their own financial plan or building out these things for your business that you do for them, you can't help them, right? You can bring them to water, but they're going to have to learn how to drink the water, so to speak. And then the last piece is profitability. And this is for both of the parties involved. So for you, you said getting that first payment is huge, but keeping that payment and also helping them become profitable too, right? And so in my business, I want my business, until I decide to scale and grow past just being a solopreneur, which is by design at this point. If I have 100 clients and you have A, B, C, D clients, you have your top tier, you have kind of just below that, and then you have clients you only talk to a couple times, 2 times a year. They have to have a certain amount of revenue that they bring into your business so that you can sustain your business and your lifestyle. And so if they're not the types of clients you want, they're not bringing in funds to your business, and at the same time, you're not helping them either save money or make more money or manage risk, that profitability piece isn't there. So it's 3 real simple things in my onboarding process. If they check those points, if they're good people, if I want to be around them at different levels, that's how I check the box to say, let's continue this conversation. So it sounds like you do a lot of the same stuff too.
That profitability part is where, as a tax professional, it really starts to become imperative that the client has realistic expectations, and that I as the professional set those realistic expectations, because my first goal is to properly, correctly, accurately get your taxes done, obviously, right? I'm your tax professional. That's why you hired me in the first place. But then I also, if you're a small business owner, I want to see your business grow. Well, if your business grows and makes more money, then in general, you're going to have to start paying more taxes, right? So, I can hold that off to a degree until at some point the math just shakes out to where you're going to have to pay something in now. And so it's maintaining those realistic expectations of saying, look, there are some advanced things we can do. There are some ideas to where you're not going to pay as much, say, if you did this yourself and didn't know some of these strategies, right? But at the end of the day, if you're growing, if you're making more money, you're going to have to pay a little bit more in, but it's not nearly as much as if. And so what I like to do for, some of my clients that still don't quite get, what exactly that value is I'll just show them, look, if I did just a straight up Schedule C, if I did the most simple way of organizing your business and treating it tax wise, here's what you'd owe versus here's what you owe now. And yeah, you still owe some taxes. And I hate that, but guess what? I owe some taxes at the end of the year too, right? And I'm the accountant, right? But, when I compare those two numbers, right, the value is the difference. The value isn't just the fact that you owe some taxes still, right? The value is the difference. And you wouldn't have known how to do that, right? And at the same time, this is something that I'm seeing a sea change in the accounting industry, the tax professional industry, and a lot of tax professionals that I'm starting to network, especially online, is none of this is secret knowledge. None of this is hidden away, locked in a vault somewhere that you have to become an EA or CPA or get hired by, some retail tax brokerage to learn all this. All of this is public knowledge. It's just written up in the tax code and in the revenue procedures and in the regulations that the IRS puts out and all of this stuff. And you can go in there and read it and figure it out too, right? But that's going to be a lot of time. And that's not what your specialty is. That's what my specialty is, right? So I figure all that stuff out for you and apply it to your case. So none of this is secret knowledge, but it is knowledge that we have to work really hard to figure out in the first place, and then 2, apply it to your specific case. So you're more than welcome to go try it on your own, right? Or, but at the same time, I could I watched a video on Facebook this morning with this guy building this really impressive coffee table that also serves as like a wine cooler and all this, and I'm sitting here watching this speed lapse video of what I know had to have been days and days worth of work. I'm not going to do that myself, right? I'm going to pay this guy, $1,000, $2,000, $2,500 for this table. If I really wanted this table, I'm not going to spend all the time to build it because that's not where my time needs to be spent. But this guy, I hope that, and unless he's also a tax professional, I hope he's not doing his own taxes when he's selling these products, right? So we have to figure out what we're best at right? Where what's called opportunity cost, right? What is our opportunity cost? My opportunity cost is building my own furniture, right? My 2-year-old daughter, she's learning to love IKEA because she just runs through that store like a mad person.
Yeah.
I can't stand it because I know anything I buy, I'm going to have to bring home and spend an afternoon trying to put together. That's not where my time is best spent. Your time is not best spent as a small business owner, as somebody providing your own particular service or product to the industry. Your time is not best spent trying to open up your QuickBooks file and figure out how QuickBooks work and how your bookkeeping works, trying to run payroll to your business using paper checks. And I've seen business owners writing payroll checks on paper checks and using the memo line down in the bottom left corner to do all the reconciliation for the tax withholding, for the payroll tax and the income tax withholding. And it's all there in the memo line. And that is in 2019, right? You are costing yourself so much more time and energy and so many mistakes doing it that way too, that cause even more time and energy and money to be lost, right? Yep. So, just recognize what that specialty of yours is and focus on that and figure out a way to outsource the rest.
You got to stay in your lane, so to speak. And it's good you got to grow and you got to learn and you got to develop, but keep honing your skills on your craft and find the people that are amazing at what they do. And it does, there's this mentality of like bootstrapping or saving, a penny, but you don't want to step over dollars to pick up pennies is the adage.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You want to be able to stay in your lane, grow what you're good at, focus on whatever it is that got you to this point and offload a lot of this stuff. And for me, what I've done in my business is with this podcast, this podcast started off as just a way to kind of give back and help people. And it's grown into something more now. And it's really cool to see how it's grown. But, for me to do the editing on the videos and the uploading of the podcast and all this different stuff, posting on Instagram, I have people that help me with this stuff because I have a wealth management business that I have to tend to. And I have clients that need financial planning help. And it's like, this is great, and this is what helps me meet more people, and I want to share their stories. But at the end of the day, I'm an entrepreneurial wealth advisor. I need to be out there creating financial plans and watching the markets and making sure people are risk managed and all these different fun things, right? For me, I'm a nerd when it comes to that stuff. But you hit the nail right on the head. You have to find experts, people that you like, people that you're willing to run with in life, and surround those people around you in your life and your business. I think it's a great point.
Yeah. I mean, when a big manufacturing business buys a new piece of equipment, right? Or a new production facility or something like that, they don't see it as a cost, right? They see it as an investment in their capacity to keep making money in the future. When you hire a professional to outsource work to, right? So that you can focus in on the core aspect of your business, stop looking at that as a cost and start looking at that as an investment in your own capacity and your own ability to continue improving on those processes, improving on your ability to serve your existing customers or clients and go out there and get more.
Yep. And so for you and your business, you've obviously grown this thing. It's taken a couple of years to, where you are now, and you have a mentor in place that helps you fast track your learning and helps you look at things a little bit differently maybe that you would have. What are some of the biggest hurdles you've had to overcome? And again, I understand very much so the whole starting a business, having a child. We have 2 children now. We were buying and closing on a house at one point while my wife was in labor and delivery while I was starting a company years ago. So I was there with you, I get it. Right. So outside of those things, what are some of the business pains, the growing pains that you've grown through? And how do you look at those things now on the other side?
Yeah. A big one is just like I said, identifying that ideal client, staying focused on that ideal client, and drowning out the noise to focus on the signal. That's a big part of it. Another one is, I've always been the book smart one. I've always been the one that, I say the only exams I ever studied for were the 3 parts of the special enrollment exam that I needed to take to become an enrolled agent. Those are the only 3 exams I really ever had to study for, sit down and actually work hard for. I was always book smart. Things just came to me naturally. And on the not that it isn't still hard work, right? Just in a different way, but sure. on the the street smarts, right? The understanding people. And so, part of the draw of accounting to me was because there's this logic. It's computational, it's mathematical. It's, can you read the code and research it and interpret it, right? And so there is this notion of the nerdy accountant that's sitting in the back office that's just crunching numbers all day. But so much more, that's only a very small sliver of what we have to do to be a good accountant, to be a good professional, just in general. You have to get out and you have to talk to people. You have to find out about people. You have to figure out what their pain points are, right? And therefore how you can help them. And you have to drive that conversation because, in everybody needs an accountant, right? Everybody needs their taxes done. Almost everybody, right? Almost everybody needs their taxes done. Almost everybody has some idea for starting a business, so that you want to help them get this thing up off the ground and run it well, all these kinds of things, right? Everybody in general needs some of that. But at the end of the day, you have to identify which ones do you really want to work with, and then how are you going to get in front of them, and how are you going to close that deal, right? How are you going to get them to, like you said, how are you going to get them to like you, right?
Yep.
There's those three phases. They got to know you, then they got to like you, then they got to trust you, and only then can you try to start selling to them, right? You got to get through all of that before you can say, okay, let me now show you, my plan. Let me now show you, let's talk about the price. You've got to go through all of that building up to it. And so some of these relationships, it might take a couple weeks, it might take a couple months, it might take a couple years to get to the point, where you actually have that relationship. I know a CPA who loves to tell a story of a guy that came to him. They did a consultation. He said the price was going to be way too high. So he left, he hired another tax professional, worked with that person for 7 or 8 years. Right. And then he finally one day said, all this time, I don't feel like this has been right. He went back to that original CPA, hired him at what now was an even higher price, right?
Sure,
because of inflation, time had gone by, and realized that all that time, the other professional had not been doing as good a job as he could have been getting, was making mistakes all over the place and all this kind of stuff. Because at the time, this guy was, saying, well, this other guy's cheaper than you were, so of course I'm going to go with him. So there's a lot of that when it comes to building a business, with all of those things in the back of your mind, like you're talking about: family, reputation, trying to build this business, all these kinds of things. And at the end of the day, you just have to say, what can I do to move things just a little bit further today, right? Do I have some prospects that I started a conversation with that kind of, fizzled out, and can I rekindle that conversation? Can I get back in front of that person? Is there somebody new that I can get in front of today? You just have to take it one day at a time and move things. And it's incredibly hard because you're saying, I want all the clients today so that I can cash those checks so I can put food on the table. But at the end of the day, that coming in to prospects with that urgency of, I got to put food on the table, they got to put food on their table too, right? So that's not going to sell the deal. But what you have to do is just work those relationships. And that's never been my strong suit. It's something I'm working on. I have a chief marketing officer, now that is helping me, the same way I'm somebody's outsourced CFO, he's my outsourced CMO, right? And so we're working together. He's helping me think about how to structure those conversations, how to do those openings. And so I found, in business school, they call it SWOT analysis: your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, right? And so I looked at, I know what my strengths are. I know what the opportunities are. I know where the threats are coming from because I can look at other accountants and how they're doing things. But that weaknesses part, that's the one where you have to take a long, hard look in the mirror, right? And be honest with yourself and say, what is the thing that's really holding me back, and how am I going to get over that? And for me, it was, I didn't come up through business. I wasn't a salesman. I'm still not, and I don't want to be a salesman, but I do want to sell. I do want to sit down with prospects or get prospects on a call and get them to a point to where they feel like they can trust me. They feel like there's a relationship here, and they feel like they're going to get more value out of it than just having somebody do their taxes.
Yep. And I think that, as far as sales, there's a negative connotation because there's so many people that have done it wrong through the ages. But if you believe in what you're doing, and it's a good service that you're providing, and you're helping people, and you feel like it's a noble effort in some way, and you're doing something that's making the world a little bit of a better place, it's not really a sale. And your passion bleeds through it. And if people see that you believe in what you're talking about, they're going to believe too. And so, there's been times in my life, I've been in and out of sales in my life. And, even though what I do now is technically considered a sale, I'm selling a service, I'm selling an idea of working with me as a consultant and an advisor. it's in my DNA and fabric to be a student so that I can lead people and to learn things and to grow every day. And this is what you're talking about, and just kind of breaking some of those comfort zones a little bit and learning where you're not great at and being vulnerable, right? So and that's okay. Like we talk about weaknesses, and corporate America the PC police have turned it into not weaknesses, but opportunities or whatever they're called now. But at the end of the day, if you suck at something and you try to get better at it, that's great. And if you can't get better at it where you're going to be excellent at it, you'll just be okay. Keep working at it, but maybe hire somebody else to do that thing for you. And I think that's what we keep going back to. So I want to talk a little bit about your podcast. And that's something that I think that's near and dear to your heart and something that you're building on the side of what you're doing. So talk to me a little about your podcast, what you're doing, the types of people you have on the show, and how that's helped you in your business along the way.
So back when I first started grad school and I was on a stipend, so I was actually making a little bit of money for the work I was doing. And so one of the ways that I treated myself after one of those first paychecks was I ran down to the AT&T store and I got an iPhone 3GS, right? And so that was the first iPhone. I've had an iPhone ever since. And when I got that first iPhone, that was when I was introduced to podcasts, right? And so this was about 2008. So podcasts have been around for a little bit there, but it hadn't really hit that heyday like we've gotten into over the last decade or so.
For sure.
So I started listening to podcasts. I started, any and all of them. And then, I would find a niche and I would start to kind of settle in on 2 or 3 shows, and then I'd get kind of bored with those. So I'd find a few others. And, over the years, I've just loved listening to podcasts. I put them on when I go for a run in the morning, or I listen to them while I'm doing the dishes and laundry, helping out around the house, those kinds of things. And so I always knew that this was something that, I was interested in, especially as a consumer of that medium. At the same time, when I was in high school and college, I edited my high school and college newspapers. So I always kind of had that flair for, for journalism, for reporting, for interviewing, for conversations, for one-on-one conversations, these kinds of things. And so, I just saw that as kind of a natural way to bring these two things together. So over the years, I tried to, and it was always that, I fear of hitting record, whether it's video or audio or whatever, there's just that fear of hitting record. Everybody's fine taking pictures of everything else. Nobody wants to see themselves on camera or hear themselves, in their AirPods or, earbuds or whatever they're, right?
I think you're a narcissist if you do love to see yourself or hear yourself.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Right. But yeah, so there's part of that, like, I don't want to see myself and I don't want other people to think that, I'm so high and mighty, I get a podcast, but I think that's one of the virtues of podcasting is it's really brought that radio and with YouTube, even the video part of it, it's really brought that down to a very natural place for, an entire generation, right? And now you look at Instagram and TikTok and these kinds of, social media where it's almost, why aren't you on these things, right? You've got people like Gary Vaynerchuk saying, I don't care who you are, I don't care what you're doing, you need to be on this, right? And so, so part of hiring this chief marketing officer was finally getting a grip on, how I can do this in a structured way. He gave me, he gave me a structure, he gave me a format. He also gave me, outsourcing the actual work, the editing, the posting it, putting the graphics in, all that kind of stuff. So, I knew when that was off my plate and all I had to do was make those connections, make those relationships, schedule the call, which even that I outsource. I use Calendly and Zoom. I use Calendly to actually book those calls, and then I use Zoom to record them. Right. So and it's minimal setup. So my podcast is the JWellsCFO show. It's branded for my business, but it's not just my clients. I bring on a lot of people. I've been really fortunate to have a good response to the people that I've reached out to about that, and really it's in a similar way. It's people who are just trying they're out there being scrappy. They're trying to start up their own business, or they've been doing their own business for a few years, all the way up to people that have been doing it for 10 or 15 years and they've got a good grip on what they're doing, but now they're in a place where they're trying to help others. So they're doing coaching, they're doing mentoring, they're doing consulting, these kinds of things. And so they've got either the stories of the people who are just getting started and they're trying to share their trials and tribulations, right? But also their successes and victories, but then all the way up to people who are just trying to put out the message that, look, there's help available for you. There are systems, there are processes available. And so, anybody and everybody in between. And, really it's just trying to put good content out there and build up a catalog of this kind of, content and material that other people can stumble upon, searching for whatever. And so really, if I had, one interview with somebody from every industry and that was really all it ended up being, but, no matter what you were searching for, one of my interviews was what popped up on the first page of your search, that would be a victory to me. That would be awesome. That would be a success for me. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. And, we are in a time and age where things are documented, recorded, and I look at it sometimes and I think down the road, very thoughtful about the future and trying to plan for it and enjoy the now too. And because there's a phrase that comes back from the Stoics many years ago called memento mori, and it means know that you will die, but know that you will die so that you live your best life today. Like if you were to die today, would you be satisfied with your life? And so I incorporate that. I don't know if I have an ethos, but if I do, that's the closest thing to an ethos because I've seen a lot of like death and despair growing up in my life. And so I've used that as a positive to catapult me to enhance my relationships, my business, my faith, my health and wellness. You talk about your running and things like this. But I do it a lot through my podcast. And so the podcast has become this thing where it's almost a documentation of the life story. And so, if something were to happen to me today, I was talking to my son Grayson last night, he's 5. I was like, if something ever happened, there's some stuff out there you can go like kind of continue to have me in your life. Like there's the podcast, there's some videos, and I even do these little videos. I'm starting to put together like a little thing for them because you just never know when your time's going to come, right? Not to get too deep in like the gloomy stuff, but the podcast world, what it's done for people. I mean, if you have a thought, if you have an idea, if you have a business, if you just have some interesting story you want to talk about, just don't be afraid to press record is like what you said, right? Get the idea. Gary Vaynerchuk talks about it all the time. He's like, just do it. Just put it out there. And when I did my first episode to now you're in episode number 40, thank you so much. From this year that I've been doing this, like things have changed. Editing's gotten better. The content's gotten better. Like you just grow into it. And a year from now, I'm going to look back and be like, yeah, now we're better again. So in terms of podcasts, you mentioned a few that have been impactful over the years. What have been the top few that have changed your mindset and or thought leaders that run those podcasts or people that have shaped your mind?
Yeah. So one of the big ones right now is Sean McCabe's podcast, Sean Wes. He goes by Sean Wes, Seanwes, but his real name's Sean McCabe. But he just has a way of thinking for creatives, and again, another term that gets thrown around, but millennials. And I think he's got a pretty strong connection and appeal to that that kind of mindset. But he's been one that's been pretty big. And in fact, he just said something in an episode this past week or a week or two ago that, really is resonating with what we were just saying of, we are raised to believe that quality over quantity, right? That it's got to be good. Don't put, and I did this when I was teaching, in universities. I said, I would rather you turn in a really good, well thought out 3-page paper than 8 pages of you just copying and pasting out of Wikipedia, right? I don't care, just to make the page limit or just to make the word count or whatever, right? Like I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for quality. But when it comes to what you're talking about with documenting, right? With creating this content, it's exactly the opposite. It's quantity over quality, especially when you first get started, right? Because the only way you're going to get to quality is by doing the quantity, putting a bunch out there, seeing what works, what doesn't, seeing what works for you, what feels comfortable for you, what doesn't, seeing what feels right for the audience and what works for them and what doesn't. But the only way you're going to get there. And so we get so hung up on trying, I'm going to create the best podcast episode ever. I'm going to write the best blog post ever, when really you're just going to be stuck there. It's always just going to be, well, someday, right? When I've got it all figured out, I'm going to do that. So that's been really that, and that's just a little glimpse of, the kind of mentality that he's bringing to that show. And so that's been pretty impactful on me. There's that one. There are a bunch of tax and accounting ones that I'm listening to that, if you're not a tax professional or you're not an accountant, I wouldn't recommend them to you. But as far as learning more about my own trade, hearing from the experts and the leaders and the up and comers in my industry, it's been really good. So, that would be another recommendation, is whatever that niche that you're interested in, whether it is your own small business or whether it's something that you're just interested in, that maybe you could turn that into a hobby or a trade. Find those top 3, 4, 5 podcasts and just listen to them all the time and really listen to what those people are saying, because there's a reason there are guests on these podcasts, right? If they're the top podcast in this field, there's a reason these people, have been invited to come on and share their stories. So listen to what they're doing. And then after that, feel free to reach out to those people. Yep. Part of why we get on these podcasts is because we like talking about ourselves, whether it's, doing this on a podcast for mass consumption, or whether it's you sending us an email with a few questions and letting us write you back. And, like I said, if it hadn't been for my mentor getting back and forth with me on some Twitter direct messages and that turning into a 90-minute phone call, I probably wouldn't be doing this business right now. I'd be an accountant. I'd be working toward becoming an accountant, but I wouldn't have propelled as fast, as quickly and as well as I did into the field as I did. And so, you never know what's going to come out of that. A person might never get back from you. Fine. Listen to the next episode and reach out to that person. That person probably will get back to you. Eventually somebody will, and you never know what kind of relationship's going to come from that. So yeah, just find those 3 or 4 podcasts in your field and just drill down deep on them.
I love it. Yeah. And there's two narratives I hear that I've lived through, and it's being your own mechanic and having a mentor. And so being your own mechanic, you can, if there's something broken, not quite right, you want to work on something, you're working towards something in your life, your relationships, your fitness, your business, whatever it is, there's a ton of content out there. There's podcasts, there's audiobooks, there's books, there's YouTube University, there's Google, right? Just be hungry about your own success. Invest in yourself. You mentioned the term earlier, like that's the best investment you can ever make is in yourself, right? And then also have a mentor, someone who's down the road, who's done some of these things specifically. Like when I was looking for a mentor and I was going from being a registered rep selling for some broker dealer, I wanted to go to being an independent entrepreneurial financial planner. What did that look like? And so I found someone who did exactly what I wanted to do and was 20 years ahead of me. And he is a great human being. He does a lot of the same things that I'm into. I'm interested in some of those things. So like align yourself with those people, be your own mechanic, have a mentor, put those two things together, and you're just going to explode. I think those two things are imperative. But I want to touch really quickly, because I think this is super important on business and life in general, just being young at heart and being able to be mobile with your children as we get older. You talked about running and some of your fitness. Like, what are some things you're doing with your fitness, and how do you feel like that ties into and enhances your daily life and your business life?
Yeah. So, having a 2-year-old really kind of changes the way you because it's funny that it goes in both directions, having a kid, right? Because on the one hand, you now, I don't care how big a fitness buff you were. If it was before you had a family, and especially kids, you just kind of saw it as this, like, I'm doing this because I think I should, right? Yep. I think this is the right thing to do. When you have
trying to get the girl because you look good.
Right, like exactly. You're doing it on you're doing it like for the moment, right? But when you have the ability to have this legacy, right? When you have the ability to, when you have this kid that needs to be picked up and carried around, that is wanting to go, I took her for the first time to this new indoor playground center that opened up here in town last week. Awesome. And, she had me running up through and going down the slides and jumping in the ball pit with her and all this kind of stuff, right? If you're not fit, and you don't have to be fit like a 2-year-old, but you've got to be fit in order to keep up with them. Otherwise, they're going to get bored and they're going to get cranky, right? Yep. And so, and when you've got a 2-year-old, you're trying to do everything you can to keep them from being bored and cranky, right?
That's right.
So you've got to have at least some minimum level of fitness and health for yourself for the moment. But then also, I don't care if she's 2 or 22 or 42. I want to be there for her. And so I need to be taking care of myself so that, I can be there for her. So the first one is just keeping up with her in the moment. The second one is being there for her in the future. But then the third one is being a role model to her. I want her taking care of herself so that she can do the same thing for the next generation and the next generation. So, that's true of health. It's also true of wealth. Like my wife, part of why I got into accounting and, helping people think about money better is because when I got that job teaching at Texas State University, I was the kid in college that got offered the credit card by the local bank and was like, sure, fine. Here's an extra $1,000 of spending money. I'm not going to turn that down. I'm a broke college student. Right. Well, then when I got that job and the first paycheck I got, it was the biggest paycheck I've ever gotten because it was the first real job, I'd ever had. And we could not pay off the prior month's balance on that credit card. We just didn't quite have enough. And I looked at it and I just thought, this is not right. This does not add up. I'm making more than I ever had. And I feel like I'm falling further and further behind. So we went out and we read Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover, and if you haven't read that and you struggle with money, or even if you feel like you're not struggling with money, but you just don't quite know what you're doing with money, it doesn't have to be Total Money Makeover. There's a bunch of others. There's Susie Orman. There's the guy that wrote The Automatic Millionaire. There's all these different kinds of, they all ultimately come down to the same principles, right? Pay off your debts and put some money back. And they all have a basic structure for helping you do that. Talk to a financial advisor, whatever you got to do, just have some sort of system where you're taking care of your money and you're taking care of yourself physically. And those are the two big things. Yeah. You
can run faster, literally, both, with your body and in your business if you're healthier. And exactly. being there for the moments in life, your daughter going to get married potentially one day. Maybe she will, maybe she won't. She decides to.
Yeah.
As she gets older and you get older, you want to be able to be involved as much as you can. And fitness plays a role in that. If you're bedridden or if there's something, if your body's broken down and, things happen that are out of control, like accidents and different things. But if you can at least pour into yourself with, nutrition and sleeping and doing the activities, at least give yourself a chance to do what you need to do. And so, I
survived grad school on fried chicken and Reese's Puffs, I would like for my daughter to have a little bit better relationship with food than that, but at the same time, I came out of grad school with 6 figures of student debt. And I would like to her, if she wants, and we're getting to a point now with this generation, and I'm pretty sure the next generation is going to be even bigger, where, college is now actually, in terms of the relevance of college for succeeding, yes. I think we're realizing, after the Gen Xers and the millennials, I think we're realizing that the boomers really propped up college as this necessary thing.
Different time.
And I would never tell somebody don't go to college, but at the same time, don't pin all your hopes on that degree. Don't say that because you got that piece of paper after that 4-year degree, that now, the path to success is wide open for you, because it doesn't work that way. And so, I'm looking at her and I'm thinking, if the things that we know now about nutrition and how to eat and how to take care of yourself, if we'd known, 30 years ago, would have made a difference in my life. If the things that we know now about money and debt and these kinds of things, if we'd known that 30 years ago, the way we know that now, how would my life be different? And so I'm trying to apply as much of that to her as possible, but still take care of us in the moment, so it's, kids make you constantly do this, like 50 years from now and the next 5 minutes. And you're just, you're trying to find the right balance between these two things. And sometimes there just isn't a balance, but it's been fun. And, like I said, building a business in the process and doing that. And at the same time, helping others build their businesses. There's a level of empathy that goes into being an accountant where, I look at clients that, they're in the same boat, right? They're trying to put, like I say, they're trying to put food on the table for their kids too. And I've got to do the best job that I can to help them so that I can keep doing my job to help my family.
Yeah, exactly. And, you talk about having empathy for your clients. I mean, the type of clients that I work with individuals and families, but I work with a lot of entrepreneurs. And so I look out the same window that they do. I understand the needs for scaling a company, cash flow, taking care of these things, and I can help them because I'm walking through those same seasons of life. But, you have a ton of value to add to the world. You are an amazing human being, which is the most important thing, I think. And there's so much more, and I think that we need to do a part 2 of this. But for now, in terms of kind of a go-home message, something that you want to leave for the audience, a little value kind of add there, and then how can people find you and get in touch with you?
Yeah, man. So again, health and wealth, right? But, talk to a financial advisor, talk to an accountant, whether you're an employee, whether you've got a side gig or a small business, you're just getting started. It is never too early to talk to an accountant, to talk to a financial advisor about these things, because, even if you think you don't have the money, the goal is to get to have the money. But if you're not doing it right, getting yourself to that point, it's going to be a lot harder. and you're going to make a lot of mistakes in getting there that are going to be costly and cost a lot of time and money. So it's never too early to talk to an accountant or a financial advisor, both really.
Both, yeah.
You know, and you know, so if you want to keep this conversation going, if you want to reach out to me, even if you don't, if it's your local accountant, whatever, that's fine, but have that conversation. I am Jeremy Wells at JWellsCFO, pretty much across all the social media that, you know, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and then my email is jwells@JWellsCFO. You can get me there too.
I love it, man. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks so much for adding a ton of value and insight and being transparent. I think that's what the world needs more of. I think you're doing a great job. He's Jay Wells. I'm Jesse T. Make sure to catch us on the newest episode of the Jesse T Show. Take care.